Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Ari, and today we're going to have some more stories about our toxic life. But before we start, it would be so much appreciated if you would subscribe to my channel, like the video, if you enjoy it, and maybe leave a comment down below. These simple clicks would mean a lot to the future of this channel and really reward the effort that I put in every day. And now without further ado, let's go. Today's first story. In this story, during a vacation to the Bahamas, my wife fell for a dolphin trainer, leaving me shocked and hurt. Despite arranging her dream experience of swimming with dolphins, she preferred the trainer's company. Confronting her, she expressed jealousy over his lifestyle. When she disappeared in the night, I tracked her down and found her with him. Refusing to support her, I ended our marriage. Despite her pleas, I remained resolute, emphasizing her betrayal. Upon returning to the US, I promptly filed for divorce, determined to move on without her. Now let's get into the story. While on a vacation to the Bahamas, my wife of 4 years fell head over heels for someone else. It was the last thing I expected to happen. We were both so stressed about our daily lives that I assumed a vacation together would be exactly what we needed to grow closer together. Instead, it was exactly what she needed to forget about me. Dolphins are her favorite animal, and she always wanted to swing with them. That's what I arranged for her. We swam with the dolphins, and while doing so, she fell for the dolphin trainer. He stayed pretty close to her out of 10 people, and I saw him touch her sides a few times, all on the pretext of dolphin finding. AP was living in a paradise, spending every day with her favorite animal. So when she looked at me, she saw a reminder of the boring life waiting for her back at home. Afterward, I talked to her about it. I knew communication was the most important thing in relationships, even if it was going to be slightly awkward or upsetting. She told me she was jealous of him and wished she could be here every day around dolphins. I said life is the way it is. People don't get to choose the lives they have access to. But if she wanted to start pursuing this career, it wasn't too late. I woke up in the hotel room at 2 in the morning to find that she was gone. I was terrified. I checked outside and our rental car was gone. She didn't leave me a note, so I figured she was trying to be sneaky and planned to be back before I woke up. I checked our family locator app and got an Uber to the address it showed. It was a very tall apartment building with a screen to look up the person you were trying to reach. I still had his name from the dolphin class, so I found his apartment number and buzzed. He answered it in a few way faster than anyone sleeping would have. I asked for my wife back and heard her voice in the background of the intercom. After a few moments, he said she was coming down. As soon as she got to me, she asked how I found her. I told her it wasn't important, but what was her finding a way back home without me? She and I said I wasn't willing to pay for her way back to the US. Now that she was cheating on me, and I didn't want her to be my wife either. She actually tried saying I wasn't being fair, that I should still care about her, at least as a friend, even though she cheated on me. She asked how I could blame her. If he's her dream guy, I told her I was a fool to believe she was my dream. I very angrily grabbed the rental keys out of her hand and got in. She nearly got her hand shut in the door from trying to stop me. I left her in the dust. Surprisingly, on the last day of vacation, I slept like a baby. I woke up to my ex calling me because she couldn't get in the hotel with the extra locks done. She said this mistake was just one moment of weakness. She swore she regretted getting his number and wished she just would have enjoyed it, the time she had with the dolphins, while looking to me as the man that made it happen. I said yup and hung up on her. I packed my stuff only and walked out to the car. She was harassing me while I packed up, but I didn't let it faze me, and I didn't let her stop me from leaving. 2 months later, I'm back in the US and already filed for divorce. My ex didn't have any close family, so I wasn't sure if she'd ever come back to the US. I was just wondering this when she called me. She was very sad, like all her life had been drained from her. It was so sweet and satisfying to turn her down. I reminded her that she gave me up even though I was the one that took her there so that we could grow closer and she could ride the dolphins. She didn't think of me at all. She was a selfish cheater that didn't deserve to have me or my help. She fell for another man while I was right there by her side. She even had the nerve to call him her dream guy. So yeah, I was just doing American men a favor by keeping her away. Today's second story. In this story, Opie reflects on his wife's enthusiasm for holidays, particularly Easter, where she organizes egg hunts and sells flowers. On Easter Sunday, suspicions arise when her supposed outing with her mother turns out false. He confronts her at the egg hunt, discovering her affair. A confrontation with her lover ensues, leading to a fight, police involvement, and the revelation of her infidelity, shattering their family. Now let's get into the story. One quality I 40 admired in my wife 44 was her enthusiasm for holidays. She said whenever she gathered with others to celebrate, it felt warm, fuzzy, and magical. Easter was no exception. She loved dyeing eggs and taking the kids on Easter egg hunts. Even though our twins grew to be too old for Easter egg hunts, she maintained her holiday routine. In preparation for Easter, she collected and boiled our chickens' eggs, dyed them, usually with the help of our sons, and used them in the egg hunt for the younger kids at the church. Besides basically hosting the church event, she also planted a large combination of daffodils, crocus, and hyacinth seedlings. She had at least 200 flowers ready for sale 9 days before Easter. She transported them with her Econoline from the grow tent in the backyard to her selling spot on the corner by the supermarket. I helped her with this project every year, including last year's Easter holiday, when, unbeknownst to me, she met AP. There were no clues that she was communicating with another romantic partner. She would just so casually tell me she was talking to her mother. I did not get along with my Mill. She drove me crazy, but I tolerated her for my wife and children's sake. By this Easter, our twins were 15 years old, so they didn't exactly jump up to go to Grandma's house. Thank goodness I had a reason to stay home. Now, how could I have known I couldn't trust my wife when she told me she was talking to her mother or going to see her mother on this Easter Sunday? My wife already had the eggs hidden for the children to find in the grass and trees behind the church. The teenagers wanted to stay home, and since my wife told me her mother was going to be at the church, probably close to my wife, I elected to stay home. About 30 minutes after my wife left, her mom called the house phone. I was a little concerned, so I answered it. It became clear that she never intended to join the Easter egg hunt this year. She was calling to see if my wife could come over after church to clip her toenails. I shuddered and hung up. Since I distinctly remembered her telling me her mother would be there, my hunch told me something was up. I let my teenagers stay home and went to the egg hunt. I spotted my wife standing alone, watching the children hunt for eggs. I walked over to her, and as soon as I greeted her, I saw panic in her eyes. She kept glancing at the church building like she expected someone to come out any minute. She quickly asked me why I was there, but before I answered, she told me her mother would be back out from the restroom any minute, so I should go back home. I calmly and grudgingly told her that I already knew her mom wasn't here. Her face and neck turned red, and she started itching until she saw a man come out of the church and start heading towards us. She quickly told me the man headed our way was just a friend that wanted to date her, but she already told him she was married. I was confused and hardly had time to think before he asked me if I was the reason she ghosted him the past week. I said excuse me, and then told him she was my wife and we were married for the past 19 years. He was immediately deflated and told me they'd been seeing each other for a year. I was taken aback. It felt like the wind was knocked out of me. She told me that wasn't true and that he'd been harassing her to the point where she considered calling the police. I just looked at her like she was crazy and asked how that could have been happening without me knowing. AP called her a liar and demanded she tell me about their plans for the future. When she covered her face, he grabbed her wrist to move her hand, and without thinking, I pushed him in an attempt to stop him from touching her. This resulted in us fighting. I remember getting a few punches in before I blacked out. When I came to, the police were there and many of the egg hunting children were gone, left in a hurry with their families because of the brawl. I was seen in an ambulance, and it was concluded I had a concussion. The police told me what I already found out. My wife was cheating on me. The word got around fast from people that went to our church, and she was pretty much shunned by all of them. As far as I know, she was practically banned from ever stepping foot in that church again. I couldn't imagine my wife willingly seeing a man, even planning a future with him, all behind my back. It felt like a nightmare. It came to light that he had a child from a previous marriage who was present at the egg hunt that my wife invited them to. AP told me that he was ending things with her as well, since he had no idea she was married. He mentioned that she begged him not to leave her and said that she told him I was abusive, which was completely made up. It was disturbing to me how my wife could sabotage our entire family all by one idiotic decision. This was enough to end everything we had together as a family, and it broke my heart. The kids and I didn't deserve this. I read posts about this in the past, but since I never did anything to betray my wife's trust, discourage her, or disappoint her, I never thought she would have a reason to cheat on me. I was just dumb for failing to realize this would happen to me. Today's third story. In this story, a couple, both single parents, formed a blended family in New York City. They shared a trusting relationship until he discovered his wife's infidelity with a man. Confronted with evidence, the wife confessed but begged for forgiveness, blaming AP's deceit. Despite her pleas, he ended the marriage, saddened by the impact on their children. Now let's get into the story. My wife, 35, and I, 40, met at a single parents group. She had a 6-year-old daughter, and I had my 9-year-old son. We hit it off instantly and pretty much agreed that very day that we wanted to try this out. It went extremely well, and our kids became friends. They'd argue a little, but quickly forgive and go back to playing. We got married, and early on my wife's routine was to take the kids to the park while I was at work in the print shop. Since we lived in New York City, we had GPS trackers activated on our phones. It offered some peace of mind. I didn't check it every day. I mostly just took my wife's word for it when she said she was going to the park or shopping. I checked more often when this routine began, but then I learned to have faith everything would be fine. After a few years, my wife suddenly started coming home with more stuff, but the money wasn't leaving our account. It took me a while to notice this, and when I finally asked my wife about it, her answer seemed rehearsed. She said she's an excellent bargain shopper and I don't need to worry about her wasting the money I earn. I thought this was nice to hear and pretty much let it go. We went out to dinner one night with the kids, and I tried to pay the bill while my wife was in the bathroom. I realized I left my card in different pants, so I looked in her wallet for the bank card to the account we shared. Instead, I found a bank card with AP's name on it. I took a picture with my phone while the waiter stared at me like I was crazy. Then AP paid for dinner. I wasn't sure how to bring this up with my wife, and I wanted her to admit the truth without trying to lie. I had to catch her red-handed. I left work to find her at the Gates location on 5th Avenue. I spotted her with AP and the kids sitting at a table eating lunch. There was a third child I assumed was AP's. I was extremely devastated. Breathing was a struggle, because I was seeing the woman I loved with another man and her kids behind my back. They held hands, kissed, and appeared to be married. I wondered why my son didn't tell me this was happening. I recorded them as I approached and told my wife that I just caught her kissing another man. Her expression looked like her soul left her body. She couldn't believe I was standing there recording. She asked in a daze how I found her. I told her never mind and took my son with me. As I walked away, I told her not to return to the apartment again. Her daughter started crying and called me daddy, which broke my heart. That's when my wife started crying and I realized strangers had stopped to watch what was happening. When I got home, I watched the video I recorded again and heard something I didn't hear at the moment. My wife told me AP's wife just died, as if that was a reason for her to be kissing and spending time with him. I had the guy's name off his bank card, so I looked him up. I easily found him, but no record of his deceased wife. He had an angry ex-wife that posted things relating to emotional support. After discovering spousal infidelity and divorce, I decided to post the video confrontation on AP's profile. Later that night, my wife returned home completely ashamed. She begged me to forgive her because she had no idea AP was lying to her and she doesn't trust him anymore. I just laughed and told her she must be able to see she's doing the same thing to me that AP did to her. He lied. She lied. He cheated. She cheated. They deserve each other. She looked sick. While she explained that, AP also hid the fact that he was staying in another woman's home. She admitted he had her over there, but only when the lady was gone. He never intended to let her or her daughter move in with him, and she didn't expect to, since she never wanted to leave me. It turns out they met at the park 7 months ago and continued meeting up ever since. She thought it was harmless to start a meaningless relationship with this man if it only helped him get through a loss and benefited our marriage. She begged me not to make her leave. I told her to get her stuff and get out. I added that if she learned anything from this, she would never cheat on anyone ever again. She cried as she packed and asked me where she was supposed to go. I shrugged and suggested her parents' house. Her daughter was super upset about having to leave. She didn't want to get any of her things, and she said she wanted to live with me. I think this helped my wife to really understand how badly she messed up. She broke apart our family and caused our kids to have to go through this too. Months later, our stuff is officially divided between my place and her parents. She's just taken several steps backward in life with nothing to show for the last 10 years except a daughter from a previous relationship. We tried to come together and live like a family should, but it wasn't enough for her. And she made the terrible decision to let another man love her, all while pretending to be my wife and living in my apartment. As hard as this was, I know I can find a real woman that remains honest and loving toward me by choice because it's what she wants to do.